Hello, my name is Terry. This video is a collection of footage assembled from the years 2001 through 2006 of the location called Zombie Road. This is a 2015 review of the footage that we've collected over the past years. And we'll be going over all the individual pieces of evidence that we've assembled from the years of investigating. All of the footage you're about to see was recorded on analog camcorders with night shot features, enabling the ability to see at night. The year 2006 was the final year we were able to get permission to conduct overnight ghost hunts at this location. Since then, it's been almost impossible to gain permission to access this location for an investigation. We will continue to try, however. Do not attempt to investigate this place on your own. They will issue $1,000 fines for anyone trespassing. You have to get permission from the local authorities, so please do not attempt to do this. At this point, I would like to discuss our first piece of evidence, a cold spot of such intensity that we were actually able to videotape it and shoot photographs of it. It was a very mild June night, about 70 degrees, but we encountered on the path an intense cold spot. This area was larger than, say, 10 or 20 feet in diameter, but it was intensely cold. It was so cold that my friend, Steve, who you'll see in this video, was able to exhale and produce plumes of smoke like he would on a cold winter morning. It also possessed other unusual characteristics. It had an electromagnetic presence to it, a statical electrical charge. I'll turn the time date stamper on. June 4th, and you're blowing smoke. The second property to this cold spot was an electromagnetic field. It would cycle on and off as if it was some kind of a generator. My friend, who was standing inside the cold spot at the time, I watched as the hair on his arm would stand up and goosebumps would break out on his skin. This would continue for a few minutes, and then it would all end, but the cold spot continued. Then a few minutes later, it was like a switch being thrown, where the hair on his arm would again stand up on end and goosebumps break out on his skin. It did this for several minutes, cycling back and forth, as if some invisible generator was causing this. So there seems to be some properties of electromagnetic fields, statical electrical properties, and these intense cold spots. But I've never encountered one of this magnitude since. One of the most prevalent forms of activity are objects being thrown down Zombie Road. We had a long procession of people forming a single file line going down the path. I was in front with my camera shooting forward. At the very end of the aisle was a group of women who experienced a piece of a cemetery headstone being thrown at them. It landed at their feet. At first I thought it was just an object that had fallen from the trees because I was so far from it. But when I went back to examine what had been thrown, it was clearly a shard from a cemetery headstone that had been shattered. We examined the surface of it, and we found no identifying marks that could relate to an individual cemetery or a person's name or any way of identifying it. This is extremely interesting, these objects being thrown, because no animal in the wild picks up rocks and throws them at people. This is an unexplained form of activity. The air is physically different here. The air is thick.
What the hell was it? I saw it come down.
I think something fell from the tree.
Wait a minute, Terry, it was big.
I felt the ground shake.
It was big.
That's a piece of a tombstone.
It does look like a piece of a tombstone.
I watched it come flying down. It almost hit her in the leg.
Why did you throw the rock?
Cold air.
Oh,
We're
I was
getting
gonna
cold
say it's
air.
cold over here.
Don't you think that the headstone being chucked at us couldn't have been a sign for us to do some checking out as to who it was?
Yeah, I know.
During one trip down Zombie Road, I actually successfully captured one of these rocks being thrown from the woods virtually at my feet. In the next clip, if you listen carefully after the sound of a camera shutter being snapped, I'll pan the camera very quickly and the rock will be seen flying from one side of the screen to the other. Its motion is extremely fast. I'll repeat this clip twice, and after this clip, I'll repeat it 2 times in slow motion, where you can get a much better view of it, and you can also hear the sound of the impact is very similar to that of a gunshot in the slow motion version. The most common sound heard down Zombie Road are the sounds of footsteps following you. While you're walking along the path, you'll commonly hear footsteps following you. When you come to a stop, the footsteps will also come to a stop. In the next clip, the 3 members of our group came to a sudden stop. After we had stopped, you could still hear the sound of a single footstep after all of us had become motionless. This is none of the 3 members of the group.
No. No.
Unintelligible voices are common down Zombie Road. You'll hear them with your ear, so these are not traditional EVPs, since you can actually hear these voices. They're usually just unintelligible mutterings that you can't understand. One of the common ones is in the next clip. One of the women in the group is speaking. The moment she's done speaking, you'll hear another voice. This is none of the members of our group. This is an unidentified voice.
Okay, which way? Hear that?
In the second audio clip, a weak male EVP voice can be heard. If I'm making it out correctly, it appears to be saying, "Me too." We don't know what this is in reference to. The next clip isn't a person speaking at all. It's the sound of someone exhaling. We have no account for this. It was none of our group members, and it just appeared on the audio when we played it back. None of us heard this at the time it was recorded. The following clip contains a weak male EVP voice. Like the others, it's virtually unintelligible. What most people don't realize is there is also a spook light that is seen down Zombie Road. It's a small light that is seen for just brief periods of time. I actually managed to capture it on video on one occasion. I set the camcorder down on the ground and my friend and I went to examine the path ahead. While we had our backs turned, the spook light appeared. It can be seen on the right-hand side of the screen. We didn't see it at the time because our backs were turned. We've seen it before on other trips, but this is the first time I actually managed to record it on video.
You know what I mean? Because it's not bolted down to the ground. So it was never there. Right. You can see. You know what I mean? It is perfectly, you know what I mean? It's ground all the way
During a separate trip down Zombie Road, I actually managed to capture this light on a still camera. It appeared in front of me, and I grabbed my camera, centered it, and snapped the picture quick enough to capture it. If you look at the picture, you'll notice that in addition to the light itself, there's an odd distortion. If you look at the train tracks, they're broken. This is an optical illusion that wasn't in reality there. It's a distortion that appears in the picture, and I can't account for this. The following 3 photographs were captured by Tom Halstead. These lights are of unknown origin. Most orbs are simply explained by dust and moisture, but these 3 I believe are not. These are lights of unknown origin. The final piece of evidence I'd like you to look at is a photo also taken by Tom Halstead. This is probably the best photograph ever taken down Zombie Road. If you look on the hillside, you'll see numerous black shadow figures standing on the hills. No one was on this hillside during the time this was photographed. When we returned during the day, we tried to find an explanation for something that could be triggering these shadow figures. There was nothing on the hillside that could account for them.